Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. I only talk about self-publishing on this show, yet it might surprise you to learn that I recommend traditional publishing for some authors. So what's up with that? Before we get into that discussion, let's talk about traditional publishing, self-publishing, and hybrid publishing. What's the difference between all of them? Traditional publishing is where you get a book deal or contract with a publishing house. It might be one of the big 5 trade publishers or a smaller independent publisher. You are usually paid in advance for your book manuscript. The advance is an advance against royalties. So when your royalties have been satisfied, then you start making royalties off the book. Until that time, you just get paid the advance, and that's all. Now, some traditional publishers might have in their contract that if you don't satisfy that royalty level that your advance covers, you might have to give back the advance. Remember, it's in advance. I haven't heard of that happening too often, but in some contracts it might be, so you need to be on the lookout for that. In a traditional deal, you may also need to be represented by an agent. This would be for the large publishers, what's called the big 5 trade publishers, such as HarperCollins or Random House, those types of publishers. Some of them may not even talk to anyone who doesn't have an agent. So that is a completely different process in itself, and sales job as well. Now, when you work with a traditional publisher, they handle a lot of the whole publishing process. You really are just there to provide the book manuscript. They will handle editing, proofreading, illustration, book cover design, legal, just everything. They also handle the marketing, but surprisingly not as much as some authors think they do. They might do some marketing at launch, but then it's really up to the author from then on. So you still have to build an author platform and have a fan base to keep making sales of your books so that you can get royalties down the road. If you are considering a traditional publishing deal, I would suggest that you read the current edition of The Writer's Market. It's been going for years. It covers a lot of the details on the traditional publishing industry and also includes listings of publishers that are looking for manuscripts. So it's a great resource. They also publish a resource of the Guide to Literary Agents. So both of those books might be worth your while to read if you are considering a traditional publishing deal. Also, if you are considering traditional publishing, you definitely want to have an attorney look over your contract with the publisher before you sign on. Some of them can be very restrictive. I had an author friend who had her first book done with a traditional publishing house, and the publisher stipulated in the contract that they had first option on her next book. So once that book was done, she couldn't self-publish or sell a manuscript to another publishing house. That's pretty restrictive. I don't know if I would have signed that contract, but it might have been a lucrative enough deal for her to go with it. But you should have an attorney look that over, review all your rights, responsibilities, how you get paid royalties, all of that. You should know that in advance. In traditional publishing, you lose a lot of control over your book manuscript. Yes, the traditional publisher handles a lot of it, and that's great because that's a lot of expense and a lot of time and a lot of effort. However, if you're concerned about how the book cover design looks and the illustrations or the formatting or anything like that, yeah, that's not going to be part of the equation. They're going to say, this is how we're doing it. And they're not going to say, oh, well, what do you think we should do for design? They've been doing this a lot, so they know what resonates with the market that you're trying to reach. So don't think that you are going to have a lot of input on that arena. Also, authors don't really get a lot of marketing out of traditional publishers these days, simply because there's just not the budget to do so. So they might help you a little bit at launch, but you have to do the continuing marketing from there forward. Okay, let's talk about self-publishing. We talk about that on this show all the time, but let's define what it really is. In self-publishing, you write the manuscript, but then you handle all the aspects of the publishing process. And that includes editing, proofreading, design, layout, marketing, distribution. It's all on you. These days, typically, authors will go with a self-publishing company that helps with the distribution of the book. That would be Kindle Direct Publishing with Amazon, could be Lulu, BookBaby, Ingram Spark. All of those are helping companies. They don't do any marketing for you, nothing like that. They just really assist with the distribution of your book. But you are responsible for everything else. Everything else. For some authors, that's reassuring. For others, that's unsettling. And you also shoulder all the expenses that go with all of those functions of publishing. So you could be spending thousands of dollars, literally. Even if you self-publish for free on platforms like Kindle Direct Publishing, where you can do it for free, that doesn't mean it's zero expense to prepare your manuscript with editing or proofreading or design or anything like that. So there could be costs involved, even if it's a free platform. But you handle it all. Now, the plus side on that is that you get all the potential royalties from day one. Not when an advance has been satisfied. You start making money on that as soon as you make sales. However, like traditional publishing, you as an author have to be responsible for building your author platform and fan base and marketing the heck out of your book. Then there's hybrid publishing, which is becoming a little more popular, but it kind of scares me sometimes. Hybrid publishing is sort of a combination of both traditional and self-publishing. The publishing house and the self-published author sort of partner up, although the self-published author is not a partner of the company. The publishing company serves as kind of a partner for the self-published author. And they both shoulder the expenses for the book. The concern that I have with it is that some of these companies that say they're hybrid, maybe not so much on the up and up. They may pass off a lot of responsibilities onto the author. They may take some rights and royalties, and oh my goodness. Okay, here's the example that I have. I had an author friend that was looking at one of these more hybrid companies, and they said that they would also send her manuscript over to one of the big trade publishers. So she was contacting me. She said, is this like legit? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But these hybrid contracts really need an attorney to look over all the rights and responsibilities before you sign on with them to make sure it's not somebody who's just scamming you. So just be very, very careful. So why would I discourage someone from self-publishing if you can retain a lot of the control and all the royalties from day one? Why would I tell someone to go with traditional publishing? If the work you're doing requires a lot of legal issues to be addressed, or there's a lot of illustration, or there's a lot of formatting, those are huge expenses. And sometimes going with the traditional publishing route can help you avoid some of that expense. And you have to remember that self-published authors, my surveys have found that 73% of them make $1,000 or less a year. So if you're going to invest these thousands and thousands of dollars and you're only going to get maybe a grant, and that's no guarantee. You might make $100, which a lot of self-published authors do. You're going to run at a loss. So then it might be worth pursuing a traditional publishing contract, even though it'll be harder to do. It could take longer. You might need an agent. So I think what's really, really necessary is for you to understand all the investments that you are going to have to make in your book, and then make a decision as to how it's best to pursue getting this book into the world. Now, the question comes up, when should you make this decision about traditional publishing, self-publishing, or hybrid? So when should you consider whether to go with traditional or self-publishing, or maybe some hybrid arrangement? Honestly, I think you should do that as soon as possible, probably before you even finish writing your book. So I hope you have found this helpful as you consider which publishing path is right for you. If you did find it helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to The Heidi Thorne Show on whatever podcast platform you like to use. I'm on Apple Podcast and Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Amazon TuneIn Radio, and Podbean. If you like the video version better, just subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and turn on the notifications so that you get an alert when a new video is available to see. I would appreciate it if you would share either the podcast or the video with your friends on social media. All my self-published books are on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. You just have to search for my name, Heidi Thorne, and my author page will come up, and you can see the list of books there. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is very simply HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.